So I'm harvesting some red willow here, and let's see if we got, if that's, yeah, good. I've already peeled off the outer red bark from the red willow, which is the most time-consuming part of the process. As you can see from here on down, this is all peeled off. And the way I do that is I do a score down the length of the branch, and then I peel it off with my thumbnail, trying not to remove the inner bark. What we want is the inner bark. That's this green Cambrian layer is what they call it. It's the most alive part of the plant. Underneath that is just wood, the willow wood. So we want to expose this, and then we'll strip it off to harvest what we want here. So, and I use a really sharp knife. This is a really sharp knife here. And I'll start with this end up here and just run the knife down it like so. You see how it's curling up like this? This is what we want. This. And so we do that to the whole thing, stripping off that inner bark. We don't want the underlying wood so much as just that green layer. And what I've learned in doing this is that we want to do it when it's fresh. If you let this dry out before you try to do it, this green layer will become reddish and it'll become dry and hard, and it seems to me to be much easier if you do it when it's fresh and green like this. And then, so you just strip that off, and then the sharper the knife, the better. After you've gotten a bunch of that, you dry it out. And you can do it quickly by putting it over a fire, putting it close to a heat source, like putting it in a pan and then setting the pan on the wood stove. That's one way. I was learning about a way that the Flathead Indians used to do this. Say they are out of tobacco. They don't have any tobacco. So they find some red willow like this. They strip off that outer layer of red bark, and then they use their knives and strip the Cambrian layer off, the inner layer. And then they have these curls of bark around the stem, around the branch. And then they take that branch and they'll stick it in the ground right in front of the fire and let the fire warm those curls, and it's sort of roasting the tobacco. Well, it's called tobacco, but it's red willow bark. The shorthand term for it is tobacco. Another term for it is kinnikinnick. The Iroquois or the Ojibwe. The Ojibwe have a word where they call it kinnikinnick. So it's really all one thing. There is in the Pacific Northwest another herbal plant called the kinnikinnick, but that's a different thing. It's a different plant, different thing entirely. That sometimes is used in a smoking mixture. The term kinnikinnick can also mean a smoking mixture, but it also can mean just this red willow bark, which can be smoked without any mixture. Just purely this. And it's a very nice, smooth smoke. And it's used for ceremonial purposes, in particular by the Lakotas. The Lakotas will only use this alone in their pipes. No tobacco, no mixture. That's what I was told. So, that's an introduction to Harvesting Red Willow. And we'll see how this goes. Maybe I'll add some more to this. But that's all for now. Aho, Mitakuya. Okay, so continuing on a little bit with the red willow bark story. Like I said before, the Lakotas only use red willow bark in their pipes. They don't mix it with anything else. They don't mix it with tobacco. So, the lore that I've heard is that the harvesting season is after the last thunder and before the first thunder, so that's pretty much winter time. And during the winter time, you would be able to see these bright red stems against the background of the ice and snow easily. So there's a way of harvesting the plant, and most of it has to do with respect. And the idea is to do it in a sustainable way with respect, so that you can come back the next year and it'll be there again, and the plant will take care of you according to the old covenant. There's sort of a rules to go by when you're harvesting. When you actually find the plant you're getting ready to harvest, you offer it tobacco. You introduce yourself, and you're accountable as the one who's coming to take a life. You ask their permission before you take them, before you harvest them. If they give you a straight up yes answer, okay, fine. But if they say no, then don't do it. Don't take the first one that calls to you, and don't take the last one. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given to you. So how do you know these things? By paying attention, by developing discernment. Never take more than half of what's there. You leave some for others, and you leave some so that it'll propagate again. You harvest in a way that minimizes harm. You use it respectfully, never waste what you have taken, and you share what you receive. You give thanks for what you've been given, and like I said, you give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken, like the tobacco. If you don't have tobacco to give, you can give some of your hair, your own hair. And in this way, you sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. So after you've found the plants, and you've taken the cuttings, and you know, about 2 feet or 3 feet. This one's a little thin, could be a little thicker. This one's about a week old too. So it's a little bit drier than I would like. I like it when it's really fresh. When it's really fresh, the layer that you're going to want to strip off is a green color. And when it's been dried like this, it's going to become a little bit reddish. That green color goes away. But we'll see what this looks like. The hardest part to this is removing this red bark. You want to get the inner bark, the inner layer, which is the cambium layer. So to get this red bark off, what I do is I score the branch, being very careful not to let this knife slip because it's pretty sharp. Getting close to my hand there. Okay, so it's scored. Now I take my thumbnail, and pull that open like that, and then start stripping that bark off. Now, I know that some people, see that? That's kind of greenish in there. That's what we want. And it's still moist in there, even though it's like a week old. This was cut last week. And I got so many of them. I got about 20 cuttings. And I've been working my way through them, about halfway through. It's a bit more than what I asked for, but it's okay. The more the merrier, right? The more product I'm going to get ultimately. You know, I had to make sure that I process it all and that I don't waste any. That would be a travesty to waste it. So, you see, I'm peeling this off with my thumbnail, and I find that that is the safest way to keep from scraping off the inner bark. I know some people use a knife to cut this red outer bark off, to strip that off, to reveal the underlying bark, but that takes an extremely fine touch to only remove that red outer bark and not get any of that inner bark. I don't have that fine touch myself. See how it's starting to dry out a little bit? It's getting red right there. You could, you know, there are various techniques where you could try to strip off this outer bark with a knife like this. And try to do it without getting that bark underneath it. But it just seems to be so problematic to me. I mean, you could try it like this. You see, I'm getting the red off, but I'm also easily taking off some of that underlying layer. So I prefer to do it with my thumbnail, and that makes it very time consuming. It's like a meditative act. It's a meditation, a test in patience. You know, if you have ADD, you may not be able to pull this off. You may not have the patience. But, you know, in these old ways, they were ways of training people, you know, particularly kids, you know, and how to concentrate and come to control themselves so that they could accomplish things. You know, nowadays, if you have ADD, if you're diagnosed with ADD, then oh well, it's okay. Now I understand why you can't concentrate. But does the person ever like get over it, or find a way to deal with it, or find a way to compensate, or a way to go on with their lives? You know, in your life, there's going to be plenty of challenges where you're going to have to be able to discipline yourself and be patient and select long-term goals. You know, you may not get, you know, what you want today, but, you know, if you're willing to do without today, you'll come up with more in the long run. And some of these older ways are smarter than our modern newfangled ones. So you see I'm getting like a nice chunk of that red bark off now. Takes an immense amount of patience, more than anything, to do this, particularly if you have a lot of it to do, because it's just going to take a lot of time. And of course, if you got a lot of things to do, you don't have the time to spend on this, you're not going to be able to do it. And you know, maybe your pal who is doing it will gift you some. You can depend on that for a while, but can you depend on it forever? And I wouldn't recommend buying it, because again, that gets into that whole question of the involvement of the dominant Western culture's system, or their monetary system, allowing that to sort of infect the spiritual process, the spiritual act. And that's definitely what this is about, because the smoking mixture that this will create, that this will make, will go into a sacred pipe, a wakal chanupa, a chanupa wakal, sacred pipe. When the pipes are in ceremony, in just about all Lakota ceremonies, the pipe is a part of it, and the pipes are present. And during the ceremony, there is prayer happening, and all of the prayers that are said during that ceremony go into the pipe. And by that I mean they go into the smoking mixture. They go into this that you're working on here. That's why this is sacred work, and why it's so important to do it, you know, in a prayerful, mindful way, a respectful way. But once you create the smoking mixture, that goes into the pipes when the pipes are loaded. Some people don't like the term loaded, because it sounds, you know, you don't load a pipe, you load a gun, right? And a pipe is not a gun. We fill our pipes, we don't load them. I've been told this before. A lot of people use the term load pipes, though. So when those pipes are loaded, this smoking mixture is put into the pipe. Then the prayers go into the smoking mixture during ceremony, and then at the end of the ceremony, the pipes are lit and passed around to be smoked and shared by everybody in the ceremony. And when that happens, the smoke actually is the breath of Wope, the all feminine, the divine feminine. She's the falling star. She's the one that fell to earth as a meteorite, as a falling star. She came to visit the people as the white buffalo calf pipe woman, and she gave the people the ceremonies, the 7 ceremonies, and she gave the people the pipe, the first pipe, which is said to be kept now by Chief Arvel Looking Horse. And all the pipes are linked to that original pipe. But so the smoking mixture that I'm working on here is really important, because it will carry the prayers. It becomes the breath of Wope. Goes that smoke, and that smoke goes away from the ceremony, either goes out the door of the sweat lodge, or if it's an outdoor ceremony, it just goes up to spirits, to spirit, carried on the breath of Wope. And I'm going to finish this little piece here, scrape this off. It's really green right here. On one side, it's a little dried auto, on the other side, and on that side, you can see it's been turning kind of red and it'll be harder and drier. See how this is red right here? I'll get this bark off here. And I'm keeping the bark scrapings, but I'm not really sure what to do with them. So this is what it looks like after you're accumulating some amount of it. But you just scrape it like this. And it creates these little curly fries. And it's originally green. The Cambrian layer is green. You can see it's green right there. And as it dries, it turns pinkish red. So all these curlies that I've already been harvested off of here. All these in the pan here, you can see how they're kind of turning pinkish and a dark red. The dark red is the Cambrian layer. Well, so that's pretty much the story of the red willow bark, harvesting red willow bark. It's a really important thing for the Lakotas. Other cultures, other native cultures, indigenous cultures used it. I know that the Algonquins, the Iroquois, the Ojibways, they did. So I'm sure it was fairly common practice throughout the Americas. And so that's a little tutorial on harvesting red willow bark. And I think that's chapter 7 of the secret lore of the Lakota shamans.